I need to warm up a little bit, but anyway, yeah, go ahead.
No, I would say we can start. Hi Francesco, how are you? How is everything going? It's nice to see you finally.
Nice to see
in a long
you.
time.
Thank you for being here, for inviting me to this chat. I'm good. Yeah.
What have you been up to recently? Like, your studio is amazing. I was so surprised when I arrived here. You've got so many works, and have you been working a lot recently?
Oh yes, I have. This year I've been doing larger works like this you see in the back here, mostly on figures. Doing a lot of workshops, classes as well, and videos and demos, and yeah, it's busy time.
I've seen you being quite active, I would say, but maybe we can start from the beginning, because today we are here with Francesco Fontana, who's a watercolor artist, but not only. Yeah, tell us a little bit about you, about how you started doing art and how your journey evolved.
Okay, yeah, that's never so easy. Anyway, I started when I was a kid. I basically started, drawing like every kid, and I understand that that was something that I loved to do, and I was kind of compulsive in a way, drawing all the time and stuff like that. But actually, the turning point was when I was about 20. I decided to move to Paris because my idea was to have, a bohemian kind of artist life.
And you moved to Paris to study art?
No, actually, I went. I went just like that. I packed up and moved to Paris without knowing even not speaking French, which I learned later on.
How long have you been in Paris?
That was just a year, 1 year. Then I moved to London, but it was pretty important because I was young enough to absorb all the atmosphere of Paris. In the 80s, it still was kind of a the vibes were very much artistic,
very bohemian.
Very bohemian, exactly. And so actually I went there and I found myself doing being a portrait artist
in Montmartre, I heard.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, Montmartre, and also Saint-Germain-des-Prés, which is the boulevard down in the Latin Quarter and so on. So I made a lot of friends, and that was kind of a very life school. Learned a lot on the street, and it was pretty important to me. And so that's how I started. But it was pretty. The funny thing that 10 years earlier, when I was at middle school, so like 7th grade or something, the teacher showed us the painters in Montmartre, in Paris. And so I was a kid, and I said, that's what I want to do in my life. Wow. That was the insight that I had. And then 10 years later, on my 20s, I find myself to do that.
Like, did you study in art school, in art university or something like that?
Yes, I did. I did the so-called Liceo Artistico in Palermo, where I'm from, Sicily. I did the Liceo, the art school, the high school of arts, Then I sort of actually signed up for architecture at the university, which I actually quit because I didn't want to be an architect, actually. So. And I also wanted to be independent, pretty, as soon as possible. So I just moved in, eat the road, and being an artist, just.
So you finished high school, you did a year or a couple of years of architecture, and then you moved to Paris to launch yourself, right?
Yeah.
And how did you actually get to paint in Montmartre? You just show up there, or?
Oh, that was kind of a. It's pretty curious because that spot is pretty good money maker place, and so there was a lot of competition, and I was introduced by a friend that I became friend there. So it still was kind of a fight anyway, a daily fight, because it's funny because it's there was a lot of competition. I know even nowadays there's a lot of competition, and the crazy thing is that I met 2 friends from those years. They still work there. So and that's pretty amazing because I respect them but I don't know. Can they do that for so many years?
It's a tough life, right?
It's a tough life. You figure the winter in Paris is pretty tough. I'm glad that I then that was just the start of my journey, and but then I went to other places and other.
But would you say that painting in Montmartre was up to your expectations? Because you said that your teacher showed you in school, right? And then you finally had to do it.
That's a very good question. Because actually it was more kind of, you say, real, meaning as I said, there was a lot of competition. There was a lot of working with tourists. It's not because it was a kind of commercial work. It was a struggle in a way, because also I was pretty much an idealistic sort of thinking that I should do the portrait in a certain way, the way I think it's supposed to be done. I was surrounded by people that was very kind of flattering. Other artists were flattering the clients, so doing big eyes and doing the girls much more beautiful and attractive than they were in reality. So I actually faced a very kind of a little tougher reality, but the overall experience in Paris was great. That was the difference. The people that I met, my growth as a young man, and that was the real plus. Not actually very much the experience on the ground of Montmartre itself.
But what it has taught you, basically. So what?
Yes, exactly. It was a test also, because there you understand that the artist's life can be hard, can be a struggle, and it was. So I was taught the hard way, just for the first minute, that if I wanted to be an artist, it wasn't going to be easy anyway.
Yeah.
In a way, once you do that kind of, you start like that, you're ready for everything, And maybe it's not a chance that later, maybe 10 or 15 years later, I got into the plein air circuit in the States, particularly, where I found myself working outdoor. So I was kind of ready. It was something that I already knew. That helped a lot, as well. It's part of the experience, and I still do go out
to do a lot of plein air. But we're gonna get to the plein air topic. I'm curious because you said that you moved to London after Paris. I mean, I love the fact that you traveled a lot, and I want to understand better. Did you move to London still to do art, and because you had a different artistic goal?
Yeah, there was the goal was also to learn the language. Mm-hmm. So I said I moved to London because I want to learn English, better, and I did the same thing. So the connection, there was still a friend that was, moving back and forth, Paris and London. So I moved to London. In London, it was even tougher because at the time, there wasn't the romantic side of that. However, that was in Paris. It was a little bit more. It was a smaller group, just outside the National Portrait Gallery.
Amazing.
There's a statue up there, and I remember we were walking around it. And now recently, I found out that I was there. They remodeled the piazza, the little square, and so it's no longer the way it was. It was still a great memory for me, but that was a very kind of a smaller spot, and so even I don't know if it was the weather or the atmosphere was a little more tougher than Paris, So, but however, all this experience, you go through. It's when you're young and you on your 20s. They're very kind of making your personality
They shape your personality.
The shape of your character and personality and vision and so.
What happened after?
After that, I moved back to Sicily, and that's a long story as well because I moved back to Sicily, and in a way, I was a different person because for some reason I understood that everybody was looking at me a different way. You understand that Palermo is a pretty large city, but however, is kind of outside the great cities that make a difference, that have in the art world or in general. So also at the time, traveling wasn't so popular and easy and cheap as it is today, and affordable as it is today. So it's like I went to the moon and then back home. Everybody was looking at me a different way, and that opened a few doors actually, because I was called by the local. There was a local, still is, jazz association, jazz group that was organizing great, amazing concert actually of all the top American jazz players, Miles Davis, just to name one, and all the others. So I was kind of called to paint and draw the posters, all the the flyers, the booklet and stuff. Beautiful. Like that. So I was working in graphic and illustration, but just specifically for this network of jazz music and cultural institutions like theaters, also symphonic orchestra and stuff like that. So I was into the music from the side of a visual artist.
Wow, that was fun. Sounds fun.
That was fun, but that was everything. It's a special environment as well, the music and the show business, because I've been for a few years in the show business anyway, because I used to be a musician myself. But
what did you play?
I was singing.
Oh wow. Singing.
But there are harsh sides too, but it's because the challenge is when something that you love becomes your profession, you work into that, it's great, but of course you see also the other side of the coin. But it was exciting. It was great. It was fun. I met great artists. I met great people as well.
And you mentioned the States. So did you actually get to live in the States, or did you go there for some workshops, events, and so on? So how did you get to the States? Because I know that you had a lot of success in the US, I would say, right? So how did that arrive in a sort of sense?
That was my second dream after Paris. That was my second dream, and a little later in my life. And so actually, because also I knew that I had a family. I still have a big family in the US, but till my 30s, I never met them. So there was this kind of call. And but maybe subconsciously I started from another, I entered that through another different door of business thing. But anyway, I just flew there and went to the plein air convention. That's what I meant before. There's a big movement of plein air painting. There's huge revival of the Impressionist way to paint. That the Americans love, and so I just signed up for this convention as an attendee actually. That was in California, and I met the boss, big boss Eric, roads, and that's funny because it's very different from an Italian perspective. The man said, I'm honored that you're here. They came, all the way from Italy to attend our convention. How can I help you? And I said, well, that's pretty simple. I just want to make a career in the States. And he said, okay, that's cool. Let's meet later tonight for a drink and talk about it. And that's what we did.
Wow, that's amazing. Such a great story.
And so my career started in the States that way. And I was called to be part of the plein air festivals, which are like competitions. But there's a lot of painting, of course, outdoor. Then there's a show, there's the auction, there's sales, donation, gala. It's become an industry in a way. So there's plein air magazine. So all started like interview. I did the. He offered me to record and publish a DVD that, about 10 years ago. DVDs were still, in the market, big on market in the States in particular.
Where you paint and teach how to paint there.
Yeah, it's a 3-hour tutorial of watercolor painting.
Mm-hmm.
So magazines and things like that, and then I taught workshops. I was, called to teach workshops, and some oil workshops as well, because at the time I was also painting in oil.
You told me that you're also part of the American Watercolor Society. So tell me a little bit about that as well, because I think that's another side of that, your US journey in some
Yes, it is. I'm very proud of it because it was a long journey in a way, because the American Watercolor Society is the, I say the biggest institution in the watercolor community and tradition. They've been around for under 60 years or even longer than this. So, and they make an international exhibition every year, but in order to attain that, you need to pass a jury through international applications. So I had the chance to exhibit with them in New York for three times.
Wow.
Out of several applications, because the competition is pretty big, and then I won this prize, the third prize, with my painting.
With this painting, right?
Yes, this painting titled Breakfast in America, because she's my daughter, and also this relates to my American family, because we were in the kitchen of my cousin Diane Fontana in Long Island. So so this painting won this prize and toured the US for 7 or 8 museums. For a year, was touring several museums. So the same thing happened with the National Watercolor Society on the west side of the US in Los Angeles. The meaning of this is that these institutions select watercolor painters among the best of the best in the world. So becoming their signature member in both the American Watercolor Society and the National Watercolor Society, it's a huge acknowledgement, it's a huge recognition. And so that's the other part of the the first part is kind of the plein air,
beautiful,
the movement, the plein air activity, and the second one is the watercolor institutions and prizes and award in workshops and stuff like that.
That's beautiful. And actually, I had something to ask you about your journey. Did your parents support your artistic journey, or did they want you to become an architect or to have a degree in like a more conventional, let's say, profession? Interesting
question too. Well, that was pretty much weird in a way, because my mother was supporting me. She was kind of the romantic side, she loved to play. She wanted to be a piano player, which she did, and so she actually transferred her aspirations onto me, probably. And so she encouraged me, definitely. My father was a little bit of a more basic man, more so he wanted me to be exactly, I don't know exactly what kind of profession he expected. Probably he didn't want me to be any special profession particularly, but just have a safe, a secure
Sure.
job, just a job. It was an accountant, and whatever that would just provide a wage, a steady wage, that would be good. So in his eyes, I was kind of a crazy, kind of fool
guy. Yeah.
just talking, doing kind of arts and music and painting and just traveling, going to Paris. He honestly, the poor man wouldn't understand. He didn't understand what I was
doing with your life.
With my life. Actually, psychologically, it wasn't easy because I was in conflict, and I said, do I follow that, message, my mother's message, or just do I give up and just stick with something safer, etc. Then, of course, the choice was that, as we know, that I decided to be an artist. And it wasn't easy. I remember, for instance, something, the day my father died in 2011, I was in New York, and I was painting in Central Park. So this is pretty kind of tough to say, but anyway, I had the strong feeling that I said goodbye to my father, virtually, and also to that struggle that it was symbolizing for me for a long time. Not in his late days, actually, because we reconciled in the late days, late years, actually. But however, it was kind of a turning the page. So yeah, that's just.
I mean, I think you succeeded in your work. You're still doing a lot of things. So I mean, I'm sure he'd be proud of you in any case.
Absolutely, yeah. I had the at that moment he understood. He had understood even before that I made the good choice for myself, for my life, and he respected me very much because he knew that I was just winning my bread, through art, and so he respected that, But it was a struggle. Anyway. So we left each other in peace and love, and but as I said, symbolically, it was a turning the page because I was in New York, I was in Central Park, I was painting, and so it's the turning.
Of course, we as humans are complicating beings, and when it comes to make art, it's not always understood by everyone, I would say, and it's very important to have our parents' support, and it's not something that we should take for granted to have some, because I know that many artists didn't, and so on. And anyway, I just want to change topic and talking about human beings. I saw that you're painting a lot of people, and I guess that comes from your work on the street as well, because I realized that you always manage to capture some emotion, the mood of the place. You manage to take out something from that. And would you say that people and humans are the thing you most enjoy painting rather than landscapes? And would you also say that your street experience actually helped you with that?
I think so, because recently, in recent years, I focused on this so-called street business. I call it street business series, which is based on figures of people working on the street. Should they be artists or writers or puppeteers or just guys selling floats, selling stuff on the green beach in Sicily or whatever, or the lady collecting cans and plastic on Times Square. I was really attracted by these people for a while, and still I'm still attracted by these people. And then it just actually after I did it, I started this series, I realized that maybe that was connected, that was connected to my experiences as a street artist in my early days. You know, the meaning for me is that however there's a dignity in there, there's the struggle, but also the honesty of being humble enough to expose yourself down the street, you know, in the middle of the crowd, and just because living first in art follows, and but not necessarily art, anything that you can do to make a living, but also being among people. It's not only make a living, because there's a difference between making a living in an office, a 9 to 5, and just even collect cans on Times Square. It can be even tougher, but you are in the midst, in the middle of the flow, of the human flow. So I'm very much driven, you know, by that kind of things. I do paint also landscapes and cityscapes, and because that's part of the fun of it, and the travel, and as well. Yeah.
Would you say that watercolor helps you to express better these feelings, these emotions, this immediacy as well?
Well, watercolor, yes. The answer is yes, but the most important things in watercolor is the transparency. There is something to it that is very much kind of revealing your soul, because you cannot fake it. It's there, it sticks. You cannot manipulate it too much. You cannot correct it most of the times, you know. And so I love to paint in oil, acrylic, draw. I love very much just drawing, just with a pencil, typical, classical, traditional pencil. But, you know, watercolor is something special because there's so much reflection, there's so much connection with an organic element, which is water. So water is still has to us subconsciously something, you know, profound, I think. This is very much psychoanalytic, but I mean,
you're from Palermo, so you have a special connection to water as well, I guess.
Yeah, you can put it that way too. Sure. Yeah, so I've been working the past 7-8 years in watercolor, mainly in watercolor, and still there's so much to do. But, you know, however, from time to time I just switch to oil, to wash, for instance. The day is made of 24 hours. So
yeah, for artists it's never enough. Never enough. But yeah, I love the way you expressed your thoughts about watercolor. That was really poetic, but I completely understand what you're saying. And is there a particular work that you're attached to, like a particular piece of yours?
Well, definitely the one we've been talking before, because she's my daughter Flora, caught in a very familiar but also discovery moment, because I brought them to their cousins for the first time in the States. She was all, you know, she was very young. She was like, well, she doesn't look so young there, but anyway, she was a kid. She was actually the inspiration. So for the gesture, the posture, it wasn't meant to be her portrait, but however, it started from that inspiration, and so I'm very much tied to this. But there are others anyway. There's so many, even in the studio, that sometimes just, you know, flip them through and I say, oh, this one, yeah, remember that. place.
It's good memories. You paint basically postcards, like the memories of the places you go all the time.
In a sense, try not to be the postcard painter, like something, too polite or too polished as a souvenir, of course, but they're a souvenir for myself. Like, this experience in Bali, for instance, I was called by a very influent lady to teach them a workshop in Bali, Indonesia. And that was another amazing experience. So whenever I get the painting that I painted there, that was, by the way, the first one that I was accepted in the jewelry exhibition in New York at the American Watercolour Society. That was a painting of Bali. And so also Bali was something that really left a mark in my memory and my way to paint and, imagination and stuff.
That's beautiful. How would you say that your style has evolved through years? Did you see an evolution, or did you go more from landscape to people or something like that? Are you searching for something in your work, or would you say you found the piece in your style?
I will never find a piece because I'm always in search of something more or better or more unique. So yeah, I would say the COVID time, because this painting was painted I believe not at the COVID, but just in 2019. But anyway, then I followed doing this kind of those figure works that I've been talking about. That was during the COVID, because I was less traveling, less teaching. We were secluded in a way. So, but that was a good thing to me. That was a good time because I was kind of focusing on my art. I was fortunate enough to have this very lovely space here. I was happy. No meetings, no travels, meaning for work, for business, because I like to travel, I love to travel. But so I had a lot of time. So I focused on the figures, and I started to do the figures. So that was the first change compared to, the lot of plein air works that and so landscape works that I used to do before. The second step was to find a contemporary approach to my painting in general and watercolor particularly, because watercolor is, it's considered in a way like the paysage, sort of more related to the paysage or the naive way to paint. So I tried to paint in a way that could be more contemporary, and also the size. I did bigger size, larger sizes, which I'm planning to do even larger than this that you see now, like this one, but this for a watercolor is already large. Yeah. For an oil, could be considered the average, but for watercolor is already a large size. I want to go larger than this. This is something related to the contemporary way to feel, the painting aesthetics. Yeah. But it's not only a matter of aesthetic. The people that I portray are people that are fully immersed in the contemporary life. And so nowadays, today, my effort is to find a more, even more contemporary way. Not to be the watercolor painting of the past, of the nostalgic idea of the Veduta, painter and so on, but something that can speak a little voice in contemporary life.
Well, already I think with your people, especially, I mean, to me, they're my favorite works of yours, to be fair. That's why I keep mentioning them. But I think that's something that you're talking about already. So I really appreciate that. And
you see this painting, for instance, there's two guys in Berlin. What I do go often is spend time in Berlin. Yeah, playing chess in the park couldn't be something that you do in the 19th century. It resonates very much to today's life. Although there might be some sign of classic things, but anyway, also the way I do bright colors, treat the arrangement. But anyway, it's not me supposed to say. I tell the story, but then other would judge whether is a good painting or not.
Francesco, I think you had a great journey, so I would just get to the last question of our interview. And something I love asking is, do you have an advice for people who are starting to approach this world and want to make of art their career? What would you recommend them? What would you tell them?
Stick with it. Stick with it. You know, if you want to paint, somebody told me, I told them myself, I can't remember, but anyway. You want to paint in life, you want to be a painter, you want to be an artist, be it. Do it. Just do it. Do it. Don't give up. It's a struggle. It's hard. Today, the art thing is, that the world is changing so fast, very fast. So, in my early days, could be just working down the street, could be a different way, different kind of struggle. The struggle nowadays is to be up to technology, social media, marketing, being bombarded by messages, other artists.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of struggle, but it wasn't easy. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy anyway.
But we need to stick with it.
Stick with it.
And do our work.
Yeah.
Thank you, Francesco.
Thank you, Kate.
I will put all Francesco's details in the description. I think you have a website, you have an Instagram page. I saw some things on YouTube as well, because you collaborate with some brands. But you also give classes, right?
Yeah, of course I do. I do classes, private classes in my studio. I do workshops around the world, I would say, Italy and Europe.
You also do work on commissions?
I do, yeah. No, not many, like 2 or 3 a year per year. But yeah, I do.
Okay.
Sometimes it's fun, Some of the time it's this business is kind of pretty unpredictable.
Yeah.
You can find yourself doing stuff that you would never.
You need to be
imagine.
quite flexible.
Of course, yeah. I think the one side you need to be true to yourself. Stick to your art and be honest. To be yourself and find and dig into your profound and best version of yourself. On the other side, business is business. Sometimes you find yourself doing things that not so much fun, but it's important to do it because that allows you to go on, to keep going with your art.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay.
It was a pleasure having a chat with you. And yeah, we'll leave all Francesco's contacts in the description and hope you enjoyed the interview.